Disaster 4. The town in chaos. 2 weeks is forever when things keep vanishing, and not just from our house. Half the town was missing something. Bread rolls gone from ovens. Glow fruit lifted straight off tables. Laundry plucked from wash lines before it even dried. Socks. Aprons. Even tools from workbenches. Everyone had a story. Old Marlin swore his ladle had grown legs. Miss Taryn complained about 3 shirts missing from her line, all with the good stitching. Someone else moaned about a whole spool of thread, and the baker threatened to count every roll in front of witnesses. Our house was no better. Aunt Brenna swore her clay mug had been on the shelf, and Uncle Vedran was the worst off. He lost just one boot, the left one, and had been clomping around lopsided for 3 days before Brenna made him borrow a neighbor's. The grown-ups argued about spoiled food or lazy hands, but I knew better. The thief was collecting it all. Hoarding. The trouble was, no one believed me. I had theories, of course. Maybe the thief was building a sock fortress. Or a throne made of bread crusts, held together with glow fruit.
Go!
Maybe they were weaving stolen laundry into a banner, announcing themselves as king of all missing things. It was the only explanation that made sense. But instead of applauding my genius, people still remembered the turnip fiasco. Turnips, they said. Don't get Kelri started on turnips again. Even the littler kids teased by scribbling case notes in the dirt with sticks and pretending their stonehorns were suspects. This morning Aunt Brenna tied the market list to my wrist like I was a stonehorn she didn't trust not to wander, then gave me the look. Her glow sharpened around her eyes, bright and stern, as if she could slice straight through me. Her crescent ears tilted back once, flat with warning. No speeches, she said. No shouting. No sparks. Just roots, flour, and the tin spool from the smith. I know, I said, trying not to fidget. Her apron was already dusted white, her hair pinned but slipping loose. She swatted the dough onto the table, the thump loud enough to make my sparks jump. No theories, she added, kneading hard. I wasn't going to, I lied. No blaming neighbors. No chasing shadows. No dragging back evidence that ruins my baking. Uncle Vedran wandered in, one boot unlaced, glow dim and steady. He set his net against the wall and leaned in the doorway. Let her make a speech, Brenna. The town could use the entertainment. Brenna shot him a look sharp enough to slice the dough. Vedran's mouth twitched, but he pretended to study the knot in his net instead. I straightened my back, broom spear at my side. I'll be so quiet, I promised. Like a pebble. Like a pebble pretending to be another pebble. Brenna pressed her lips thin, which meant she didn't believe me at all. Vedran ruffled my hair on his way out. His steady glow brushed against mine, calm as river stone. Bring back the flour this time, detective. Last week's evidence didn't rise. I was cross-checking crumbs, I muttered, sparks prickling in my palms. They sent me off with a basket on my arm, the list tied tight to my wrist, and a warning heavy enough to sag both my socks. The basket handle dug into my elbow like it agreed I was guilty before I'd even left the yard. By the time I reached the market, late afternoon light slanted low across the stalls, turning the awnings copper and gold. Shadows stretched long between the cobbles, thin as ribbons, and dawn-born lanterns had already begun their polite warming glow, waiting for twilight to tip. The air smelled of roasted roots, honey bread, and too many sweaty elbows. I hugged my basket to my chest like it was a shield and pushed into the throng. My sparks fizzed at my fingertips, prickly with suspicion. 2 children spotted me and grinned. One crouched with a stick, scribbling in the dust. Case file number, turnips, he declared in a voice that sounded suspiciously like mine. The others flicked their sparks to mimic mine and went back to skipping rope. I walked faster, my crescent ears glowing hot with embarrassment. A man staggered by with flour sacks slung over each shoulder. The glow around his shoulders was dim from the weight, his steps uneven. He didn't even glance at me, just muttered as he passed, "Mind your sparks near the flour, Kelri." I squeezed sideways between two baskets of roots stacked taller than me, sparks skittering nervous in my palms. Not another speech, a woman folding cloth called, giving me a crooked smile. Her lantern flickered faintly at her hip, testing its glow for the evening. She turned right back to haggling with her customer before I could answer. That's when I had to leap aside. A tethered stonehorn shoved its shaggy nose into a cabbage cart, horns catching the slanted light so they winked like polished crystal. The rope snapped tight, jerking across the lane, and I nearly tripped. The beast tore a leaf free and bleated loud enough to shake the awning poles. The seller groaned, glow dimming as he swatted at the animal's flank. "Careful with that broom, girl. Nearly toppled me and the beast last time." He dragged the rope tighter, muttering about greedy mouths. A trio of traders argued ahead of me, Dawnborn, Mistborn, Groveborn, each insisting their goods had been hit hardest these last 2 weeks. Their glows flared, dimmed, and sharpened as they argued, showing more than their words did. "Glowfruit first," the Dawnborn said, their lanterns sparking against the dusky air. "Laundry and ribbons," the Mistborn countered, slipping a hand through the argument like oil through water. "Tools," the Groveborn grumbled, showing sap-sticky fingers. "Someone pinched my good pruning knife." "Or it walked off," someone muttered, and their glows all flickered irritably as the argument started again. The crowd bustled around me. Hurried now, the way it always did when light slanted low and people wanted to be home before true twilight. Turnips once, and they never forget. I clutched my basket tighter and tried to act casual, scanning for clues. A puddle glimmered between the cobblestones. I crouched, sparks twitching. Suspicious. Very suspicious. It could have been water. Or it could have been evidence. I poked it with my broom. Just water. But I wrote it down anyway, puddle, non-mysterious. Keep eyes open. A stonehorn bleated again behind me, loud enough to rattle a pot stall. I narrowed my eyes. Stonehorns had been near the compost before. Stonehorns were greedy. Too greedy. I scribbled quickly into my chalkstone, possible suspects, stonehorns. Motive, everything edible. I sniffed the air like a bloodhound, if bloodhounds had sparks. Roasted roots. Sweet buns. Hot iron from the smithy. And a fainter, a fruity tang, bright as a bell. Glow fruit? My stomach growled like it wanted to join the investigation. That's when I saw it. A flicker. A shimmer under a cart. I froze, sparks leaping like startled crickets across my palms. My chest buzzed so hard I thought everyone in the lane could hear it. Something sleek darted out and fast as a shadow cutting through slanted light, tail tipped with shards that caught the copper glow and winked like a signal before vanishing. It snatched something shiny from the stall, a spoon? A coin, and zipped between 2 crates, gone like it had never been. My mouth dropped open. Sparks spat so bright I nearly fumbled the coin pouch Aunt Brinna had tied to my wrist. A shard cat. The flower vendor jolted, glow tightening around his shoulders. Shard cat? In daylight? Shard cat. I jabbed at the gap so hard my basket swung and nearly toppled me. It just stole from you. Right there, glowing tail, quick pause, I saw it. The man bent stiffly, peering under the cart. He straightened with a snort, brushing flour from his apron like he was brushing me off. Shard cats don't raid markets when the sun's still up. More likely a rat, or someone's brat cousin playing tricks. Not rats, I sputtered, sparks fizzing so loud a baby in the next stall clapped. Shard cats. In broad daylight. A woman walking past gave me a look, amused but not cruel. Shard cats in the market? Don't be silly, Kelri. They stick to alleys and sheds, not under flower carts when the sun's still showing. Not made of shards. I shouted. With shards on their tails. If they were made of shards, they'd stab through the cart, not hide under it. A mistborn with a basket of herbs slipped neatly around us like water around a rock. His glow stayed calm, eyes flicking sideways. Keep your voice down, he murmured, not unkindly. You'll have half the market sparking. I saw it, I insisted, but my voice came out smaller. The vendor just waved his hand, tired, glow dim and dismissive. A couple of chuckles floated around me, but most people were already on to the next price call, the next haggling match, the next roasted root skewer. I stood there, cheeks blazing, my crescent ears glowing hot, sparks popping in frustrated dots that stung my fingertips. For a heartbeat I almost swallowed the word shardcat back down like it had never escaped. Then I hugged my chalkstone to my chest and scribbled furiously, Case File 4. First sighting in daylight. Market compromised. I added a small drawing, tail tipped with 3 shards, paws blur fast, a little star where the shiny thing had been. Accurate. Scientific. My sparks settled to a sulky fizz. The oven back home would hum smugly when it heard. I caught it again, a scrape under the fishmonger's stall, claws against wood. My ears twitched before I even thought about it, and there it was, a striped tail slipping between 2 crates, shards at the tip winking once in the light before vanishing. Didn't you see that? I hissed at the baker. He didn't even look. He was already jabbing a flower-white finger across the lane. 3 loaves gone. 3. And don't tell me it's my counting, Renver. Every time your stall's across from mine, something disappears. The spice seller banged a lid onto his jar so hard it rattled. His glow spiked orange around his cheeks. Your bread isn't worth stealing. Maybe count again before you start pointing fingers. Or better yet, watch the little ones running between stalls. Quick hands, quicker than any grown thief. It's not children. I blurted, ears flashing hot. Sparks jumped off my fingertips. And it's not the wind either. Wind doesn't have claws. Neither man turned. They kept barking at each other, glow flaring sharp as oven fire and spice smoke. My words slid into the cobbles like spilled grain. Then the glowgrain sack beside me twitched. Just a little hitch, like something had nudged it from the inside. My ears tilted sharp toward it, glowing brighter. I crept closer, fingers out. The seam at the corner looked thin. I brushed it into a puff, a silver sprinkle spilled onto my toes. Hands off, Kelri, the grain seller barked. His glow flared around his shoulders, sharp-edged, like he was puffing himself bigger. It wasn't me. I yelped, tripping backward on my sash. My ears flared crimson, traitor bright. Something's under there, I swear. What I hear are excuses, he muttered, already dimming back to a steady glow as he turned to scoop grain for a waiting customer. Sticky fingers, that's all this is. The words stung more than they should have. My ears flared, so I shoved my hair over them. Sparks prickled in my palms, itching to scribble Case File 5, sack torn. Claw marks? Investigate. SKRRTCH. My ears whipped sideways. The reed mat stall. I crouched so fast my knees popped, pressed my cheek to the table leg, and peered into the shadows. 2 silver pinpricks blinked back eyes, glowing wrong, shard bright like chips of glass catching lantern light. A tail twitched once before vanishing. Shards at the tip glinting like sparks before darkness swallowed them. I squeaked, scrambled backward, and smacked into a pair of legs. Watch it, a voice drawled. Lyric. Of course. I hadn't seen him since he'd slipped that coin and left me to face Aunt Brenna's glare alone. And here he was again, leaning like the whole world was just a wall for him to rest on. His arms were folded loose, glow steady, shoulders relaxed as if the shouting around us was a river he could stand above. But his eyes were sharp, flicking to the sack, then to me, like he already knew what I'd seen. You saw? I asked, too fast. My sparks fizzed, traitor bright at my fingertips. He didn't answer right away. Just tilted his head the smallest degree, Miss Bourne style, a maybe. The glow at his throat rippled once, then steadied. Finally his chin tipped, a nod so small most people would have missed it. Something, he said. My ears leaned toward him before I could stop them. What kind of something? His gaze flicked sideways to the stall leg I'd been peering under, then back to me. His glow sharpened in a quick flare, then flattened calm again. A tail. Maybe two. Long, with shards on the end, sharp ones. The corner of his mouth tugged, not a smile, more like a dare. Don't fall on your face proving it, he murmured. I'm not falling on my face. I snapped, yanking my sash free from under my boot. My ears burned hotter, giving me away. I'm looking. Which is more than anyone else is doing. One of his brows lifted, and his glow dimmed slow, like an exhale. He didn't argue. He never needed to, which somehow made me want to shout more. Then a ripple at the edge of my sight. I turned. A shard cat, sleek as poured night, slid up the wheel of a cart, shoulders rolling like liquid shadow. Shard-tipped tail flicked against the wood, leaving thin scratches where it struck. Its silver eyes flashed wrong, too bright, too steady. Like they belonged to something that thought more than it should. Look, I whispered, ears snapping toward it. Lyric's glow sharpened, faint but sure. His chin angled, watching where I pointed. The baker and spice seller kept shouting, their voices clashing like pans. Nobody else noticed. Look. I shouted louder, sparks scattering from my hands. The shard cat's head snapped up. Its gaze locked on mine. The glow in its eyes felt like it was pulling me closer. Then it tapped a fruit with its paw, caught it, and slid into the shadows, gone. I jabbed my finger until my shoulder ached. There. Right there. A woman nearby glanced at me, ears tilted back, then turned back to haggling for roots. The grain seller shook his head, muttering about noisy children. His glow flickered annoyed orange. That did it. Something inside me cracked like a too-tight reed. I shoved a barrel into the open space near the fountain, scrambled on top, nearly toppled, caught myself, for the record, saved it. My sash snagged, sparks spitting as I yanked it free. A few kids paused, glows bobbing playful, waiting for a show. Listen to me. The market dipped, not silent, but quieter for one breath. Glows all around flared then steadied, dozens of ears tilting my way. It's shard cats. I yelled. That's who's stealing everything. Not kids, not the wind, not bread walking off by itself. Shard cats. I saw them. I keep seeing them. And you can laugh, but it won't stop them. They're here right now, sneaking around while you fight like noisy geese. Laughter bubbled from somewhere in the crowd. The baker puffed his apron, flour dusting the air. My chest squeezed so tight I thought sparks might burst out of my throat. I saw them. I shouted again, my voice cracking. I did. Why won't you believe me? Fine, don't. But when everything's gone, don't come running to me. Not even when they steal your socks. The first cry came from a toddler, round-cheeked, unsteady on his feet. Clinging to his mother's apron. Not my sock, he wailed, tugging at the one on his foot as if it might vanish right then. His ears flicked pink with panic. Two more toddlers joined in at once, one clutching both feet to his chest, the other sobbing about his blanket. Their mothers bent to scoop them up, shooting sharp looks at me over their shoulders. The worry jumped like sparks on dry straw, leaping from the toddlers to the bigger kids before anyone could stamp it out. A group of 4- and 5-year-olds froze mid-game, rope dangling forgotten. "What about my sweet bun?" one girl whispered, eyes wide. "They'll eat it." Another boy pulled his stuffed shard cat tight against his chest, ears flicking nervously at the thought of a real one prowling near. Soon all of them were clutching something, a toy, a sweet, a stick, as if the shard cats were about to leap from under the stalls and snatch it away. By the time it hit the 6- and 7-year-olds, the voices had turned loud and sharp, tumbling over each other in a rush. "What if they take my chore sheet?" a boy blurted, glow flickering pale. "They'll wallop me if it's gone." "They'll spill the eggs," a girl cried, clutching her basket. "And Ma'll say it's my fault." Another tugged at his rope, ears tilted flat. "What if they eat the goat's feed? Then they'll say I starved it." "My slate," someone squeaked. "They'll scratch it up." "They'll take our ribbons," another whispered, twisting hers tight around her finger. The little chorus overlapped, one voice tumbling into the next until it wasn't a few kids anymore but a whole ring of them, ears back, glows dimming, every word feeding the fear of the last. And then, my age. 10, 11. My group. At first it was only mutters. "What if they take my sketchstone?" a boy whispered, hugging it close. Another's ears flicked back as he clutched the slingshot at his belt. "Mine too." But then they started glancing sideways, edging closer until their glows brushed. Sparks twitched in nervous palms. A girl twisted her ribbon until it nearly snapped. Another boy shifted his satchel forward, patting it again and again. They began to bunch up without meaning to, each move pulling the next kid tighter into the group. "They'll come in the night," someone muttered. "In the night," another echoed, a little louder. "They'll take everything. They'll take it all." The words bounced, echoed, gained speed. Clusters of kids repeated them, their voices layering until it sounded like a half-chant. Glows pulsed sharp, ears angling the same way, the whole pack feeding off its own rhythm. The energy pressed close and heavy, enough to make the hair on my arms prickle. The square buzzed with low voices now, little ones fussing, older kids chanting, mothers shushing sharp, fathers muttering about nonsense. But the nonsense was spreading, and it was mine. My ears burned hot as lanterns. I hadn't meant to start it. But I had. The baker's glow flared sharp. "Scaring half the square with your stories," he muttered, tugging at his apron strings. "Shard cats don't steal, girl. Stop stirring them up." A few adults near him nodded, glows dim with tired agreement. My sparks flared hot in my palms, not enough to answer back, but enough to sting. He didn't even look at me when he said it. None of them did. It was like I was noise, not a person. Except Lyric. His glow flickered faint at the edge, not dim like the others, but sharp for half a heartbeat, as if he was biting back a word. When I glanced, he only leaned heavier on the wall, mouth twitching almost into a smile. Not a friendly one. More like he knew something I didn't. Heat climbed my neck. My ears burned so bright they could have lit the square. I wanted to fold into the barrel, but before I could. Thup. A shard cat landed bold as brass on the fruit cart. Its body was lean and low, black fur slick as shadow, but threaded with faint crystal seams that caught the lantern light. Whiskers gleamed silver as it twitched them, testing the air. Its eyes were wrong, too bright, like shards themselves had learned how to stare. The tail swished once, twice, and every flick sent the shard tips glinting like knives dragged through firelight. It blinked at me, slow and deliberate, as if it knew exactly who had been calling its name. Then, with a quick jerk, it pawed a glowfruit loose, caught it neat as a juggler, and slid down into shadow, tail leaving one last flash of broken light before it vanished. There. There, there, there. I shrieked, pointing so hard my arm stung. Heads turned to me, never the cart. Their glows wavered, uncertain, but not where I needed them. Only Lyric's eyes stayed locked on the right place. His chin tilted in that same small nod, the barest flare of glow at his jaw. Almost a smile. I saw too. My heart banged against my ribs. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Except 2 days ago I'd seen his hand slip a coin from the spice seller's basket when he thought no one was watching. My chalkstone still had it scribbled, disaster too. Lyric. Suspect. Motive. And now he was the only one nodding along? My sparks jittered, flaring uncontrolled between my fingers. Either I wasn't wrong, or I was being fooled twice. Enough, someone said flatly. A glow dimmed low, a hand flicked dismissive. This is a market, not a play yard. Get down. It started with one. Then another. Then 3 at once. Shardcats streaked into the market like black lightning, tails winking sharp as broken crystal. Pastries vanished midair, claws neat as thieves with gloves. Glowfruit skittered across cobbles, glowing like runaway lanterns. One shardcat darted off with a ribbon spool clamped in its teeth, another leapt clear over a cart with a honey bun, sticky crumbs raining down in its wake. Someone's wig was gone before they even noticed, until it sailed past me on a shardcat's head, bobbing ridiculous as a parade crown. The market cracked open like a dropped pot. Vendors shouted. Stalls rattled. A pile of roots toppled, rolling like lumpy boulders through the crowd. A basket of glowfruit spilled, spheres scattering in every direction, chasing light down the stones like marbles. I had to hop sideways to avoid being bowled over, sparks skipping at my heels. Case file 6, I scribbled against my chalkstone as my basket swung into my hip. Full raid. Broad daylight. Items stolen, fruit, pastries, wig. Note wig thief for future sketch. Tails equals shard bright, eyes equals to think why. This is it. I shouted, my voice breaking high. Sparks fizzed from my fingertips. The big one. The raid. Kids who'd been buzzing with worry only breaths ago spun toward me, wide-eyed. Toddlers clung to mothers, but the bigger ones leaned forward like graskers crowding for feed. Their glows twitched with the thrill of seeing what grown-ups wouldn't admit. After them. I bellowed, scrambling half onto a barrel so they'd see me. Don't let them get away. Lyric's mouth quirked sideways, but he didn't argue. He snagged a broom spear from a stall corner, twirled it lazy like he was only half interested, and fell in beside me. My cousins popped out of the chaos, of course they did, sparks already crackling between their palms like they'd been waiting for this all day. And more kids came, random faces from the crowd, eyes bright, glows sharp with excitement. We had an army. Sort of. Block them off at the carts. I commanded, pointing my broom like a general. Chaos obeyed. 2 kids tossed a net, but it flew wide and wrapped around each other instead. They staggered backward, sparks flashing as they toppled into a root barrel, sending tubers bouncing like cannon fire. Another boy charged straight through a laundry line, shirts and socks rained down, draping over heads like surrender flags. A girl blasted sparks too high, they singed a cloth awning, leaving a smoky hole while the vendor shrieked and slapped at it with a wet rag. A shardcat zipped along the edge of a table, pawed a row of copper charms, and scattered them like tiny bells. Another hopped up a stack of crates and shoved a whole basket of pears off with both paws, watching from above as they thumped and split. A third slid under a stall, came out wearing the wig backward, and strutted like it owned the square. Not that way. I yelled, hopping sideways as a shard cat shot past, scarf dangling from its mouth. Other way. Herd them in. Heat flushed up my neck with the chase. Sparks spat between my fingers, wild and useless. The grown-ups weren't helping. They were worse. A butcher tried to drag his apprentice back by the collar, but the boy still had hold of the net, so the whole thing snapped sideways into a spice stall, cinnamon burst everywhere, and my sparks caught the dust until we all sneezed little embers. A mother yanked her daughter out of our line, and in the jerk she knocked over 2 baskets of roots, sending them rolling underfoot. The baker charged in waving his long-handled peel like a weapon, but all it did was send the shard cats skittering the other way, straight through us. One broom spear jab missed a shard cat entirely and smacked into a basket of radishes. Radishes rolled underfoot, popping like little stones. Kids skidded, yelped, crashed into each other. A shard cat leapt neat as a dancer through the middle of the mess, tail flashing bright shards in every face as if it was laughing. I jabbed at it, broom thudding off a cart leg instead. Pain bit my palms where the wood jumped. Sparks sizzled so hot my skin stung. Case file 7, nets ineffective. Spears clumsy. Radishes equals hazard. Cinnamon plus sparks equals sneeze fire. Adults interfering equals double chaos. A stall of ribbons became a river. Someone tripped, grabbed the edge, and pulled the whole rainbow down. Ribbons snaked around ankles and broom handles, and even a shard cat for a blink, then it slipped free, leaving us strangled in color. A different shard cat slunk onto a table piled with tin cups and patted each one off in a slow, wicked rhythm, clink. 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 Hold the, I tried, then swallowed my own cough as cinnamon burned my throat. Hold the line. There was no line. Just wild pieces of one. Lyric cut through the chaos like he'd been born in it. He didn't rush, he slid. He didn't grip the broom like a spear, he spun it loose at his fingers and angled it low to trip a shard cat, missed by a hair, but the movement made a shape, a funnel, and 2 kids copied him by accident. The shard cat veered, eyes flashing, and leapt for a stack of crates. Lyric's glow sharpened the tiniest bit. He said nothing. He flicked his chin rightward, barely a flick. I read it and shoved there with my broom just as the cat landed. It darted left instead, straight into a cluster of kids who squealed and tried to net air. We almost had it. Then an adult smacked the crate with a ladle, and the sound cracked like a whip. The cat shot straight up, claws scoring wood, and vanished over our heads. Why are you even out here? The ladle man barked at me, as if I'd called the shard cats with my mouth. Go home. I'm helping. I shouted, choking on spice. Helping ruin the market, he snapped, and swatted away a boy's net like it was a fly. The wig-wearing shard cat reappeared on the awning of a trinket stall and pranced. The wig slipped, caught on a shard, and flipped forward like bangs. It looked smug. No one else thought so. They were too busy yelling. A father snatched his son by the wrist and hauled. The boy still clung to a net rope. The rope still clung to a stall leg. The stall leg clung to the stall. The whole thing shuddered, squeaked, and then crunch, not fallen, not safe, just crooked in a way that made everyone tense. Let go, someone screamed. I am letting, the father started. And then his feet slid on a pair and he sat down hard, which would have been funny if a crate hadn't jumped loose and spilled knives. We all gasped at once. Sparks jumped off me without permission. The knives didn't stab anyone. They just rang against the stones and scared a shard cat into the air again. It caught a baker's peel with its back paws mid-leap, used it like a board, and coasted down to the counter with a thump so neat I wanted to clap. After them. I yelled again, coughing cinnamon. Don't let them get, careful, away. A girl flung a net with her whole heart and no aim. It slapped a melon stall, melons burst and slid underfoot, and one melon barrel tipped and rumbled down the slight slope like a runaway wheel. Children screamed and scattered. An older woman flapped a cloth to chase smoke, which only made the smoke chase us back. Case File 8, Melon barrels have escape plans. Knife crates very bad. Awning wig equals morale hazard, mine. A shard cat surfaced by the fountain with someone's tin ladle in its mouth, clanged it against the stone once like a bell, grinned, I swear it did, and vanished when a toddler tried to grab it. The toddler plopped down and howled. His mother scooped him and scolded me with her eyes. Block the cart wheels. I shouted at a cluster of 6- and 7-year-olds who were looking to bolt. They squeezed through there, don't let them. They did try. They planted brooms like gateposts, legs spread, braver than sense. For 3 whole breaths it worked. Then an adult waded in to clear them out of the way, you're underfoot, he said, and the space opened like a mouth. A shard cat slid through that exact gap as if we'd built it for them. Why won't you look? I shouted at nobody and everybody. Someone did look at me. Because you're making a mess. I bit my lip hard enough to taste metal. A shard cat climbed the side of a grain sack like it was a tree, claws ticking on the weave. The grain seller lunged with both hands and hugged the sack like a friend. For a heartbeat it was a silly dance. Then the seam split and the sack exhaled a glittery storm. Silver grain hissed across the cobbles in a tide, and half the kids fell, laughing and cursing and sliding like it was ice. Lyric planted his broom and didn't slide. He stepped into the flow like he'd been expecting it. He lifted his chin at me, right side gap, and I ducked through the only patch of dry cobbles left. We met at the edge of a crate pyramid the shard cat was clearly about to climb. Left. I panted. He shook his head a hair. High. He meant aim high with the broom to spook, not to strike. I did. The shard cat swerved before it leapt and I dropped my broom low at the last blink to catch its shoulder. It twisted midair, tail shards flashing, and barely cleared my stick. It landed crooked on the crate, slid, recovered, and hissed a sound like glass on stone. We had it, I groaned. We'll miss again, Lyric said mildly, and his almost smile felt like a dare. Then we keep missing closer. I puffed out a breath that tasted like cinnamon and pears and smoke. A ring of littler kids had gathered with baskets flipped upside down like traps. On my count. I yelled. 1, 2, 3. They slammed baskets down on the same empty patch of stone and yelped when a shard cat zipped between their ankles and popped up inside a basket 2 steps away like a magic trick. They all screamed and lifted their baskets and dropped them again, nowhere near the cat. Again. I cried, and we did the same wrong thing faster. A vendor tried to help by kicking the basket. He only succeeded in kicking a child's ankle. The child hopped and howled and my sparks stung with sympathy. Stop this nonsense, the vendor bellowed at me. Shard cats don't steal. One sprinted by with his string of charms right then, chiming like victory bells. He didn't hear it over his own angry voice. Case File 9, Some adults allergic to seeing. A shard cat that had been playing cup tipping now grew bold enough to climb. It scaled a crate stack, leapt to a roasting spit, balanced there like a tightrope walker, and then hopped to the stall roof. It crouched, eyes shard bright, and flattened itself smug as night. Another joined it. Their tails flicked like metronomes. Every flick sent broken light across the square. Can you spook them down? I asked Lyric, nodding at the roofline. He weighed his broom in his hand like it was a coin he might pocket. His glow tightened, then loosened. We can try. He didn't say you and me, but it felt like he did. We edged along a path the chaos made for us. People parted for yelling and smoke and flying nets, and we slid through the wake like fish through churned water. A shard cat on the roof batted a pebble off with insulting delicacy. It pinged my shoulder. Rude, I muttered. We reached the stall beam. I tapped it with my broom, high, like before. The roof cat froze. Lyric tapped lower, barely a touch. The cat's head turned, following the tiny sound. We made a rhythm, tap high, tap low, tap tap high. The cat crept to the edge to see, and suddenly 3 kids shrieked and threw a net straight up with all their might. It fell back like a tired cloud and landed over me. Kelri, my cousin, screamed, and then she laughed so hard she wheezed. I'm fine. I shouted from under net holes that smelled like damp rope. This is fine. This is extremely fine. I fought my way out, hair full of gray fibers and pride full of holes. The roof cats had vanished to the other side during my personal disaster. A clamor rose by the fountain. I spun, heart leaping. The boldest shard cat yet vaulted straight onto the fountain rim. Its tail shards caught the lantern light, scattering it like broken glass across the square. It crouched there, eyes too bright, a stolen scarf hanging from its jaws like a banner. Get it! I screamed. Sparks leaping so high they snapped in my hair. Kids lunged. Nets flew. Someone tripped over a melon and took half the squad with him. The shard cat flicked its tail, dropped the scarf into the fountain just to watch it sink, then bounded away in 3 sharp leaps, scattering water and kids alike. A toddler clapped at the splash and then started wailing when someone told him to stop having fun while being robbed. Adults roared louder than we did. Enough. Go home. You're the problem. The butcher waved his cleaver at me like punctuation. The baker shook his peel. A woman flour-dusted to the elbows jabbed a finger so close to my nose I went cross-eyed. Look what you've done. I started, and swallowed the rest because the words tripped on anger and would have fallen on their faces. A shard cat dashed between my ankles again, the same fast blur with coin-sure paws. It reached back with a neat little bite and tugged at the tie on my sash as if to prove a point. The knot slipped a fraction. I slapped my hand there and glared at empty air. Only Lyric looked like he was seeing the same thing at the same time. He leaned on his broom as if he were resting, but his eyes tracked the low shadow, exact and steady, like he was counting the cat's breaths. The corner of his mouth lifted, not friendly. There, Kelri. If you can keep up. I could. I tried. I failed. I tried again. Left flank. I shouted, which sounded like something Uncle Vedran would say even though I didn't know where a flank was in a market. Left, no, you're left. A cluster of 8-year-olds all went different directions at once and slammed into each other like a bundle of sticks. One sat down hard and blinked at the sky as if it had betrayed him. Smoke curled thicker from the ribbon scorch. Spice burn scratched my throat. The air tasted like sweets and panic and metal. My chest thrummed with too much glow, buzzing under my skin like a nest of angry fireflies. Stop sparking before you burn us all down, someone yelled at a boy who wasn't even sparking. He flinched anyway. I flinched too. Back to your houses, another adult roared. Now. Get home before I tan your hide, someone else added, because threats always help during disasters, they don't. A father tried to scoop his son out of the mess and ended up knocking into a melon stall, melons rolled everywhere, bumping ankles and splitting open with wet cracks. Juice spread sticky across the stones. A vendor smacked at a shard cat with his ladle and instead clout another man, starting a shouting match that had nothing to do with thieves or justice or anything but elbows. A shard cat pawed at a string of sausages, dragged them halfway to freedom, then dropped them when a dozen kids shrieked. It looked disappointed in us. I was disappointed in us too. Kelri, one of my cousins, gasped, jammed in a net like a fish. Orders. I'm making them. I snapped, breathless. They're just not listening. Then, again, the fountain cat. Or its twin. It bounded back onto the rim as if the square were a stage built for it alone. Lanterns found its edges, its crystal seams blinked and vanished, its eyes were shards that thought too hard. It turned its head slowly, deliberately, like it was checking to see if I still cared. I do. I yelled at it, because I did. I care. I lifted my broom. Kids surged. We were a bad wave, breaking all wrong, but still a wave. For a heartbeat, I believed we could cover the stones with our trying and make it enough. The shard cat flicked its tail and I saw the decision ripple through its body, back legs bunching, whiskers forward, paws testing the stone. I lunged at the same time. The broom whistled. The cat went up, not forward. It sprang over us, water arcs glittering behind it, tail shards striping the spray into knives of light. It landed on a stack of crates, ricocheted to the trinket stall, and vanished under the awning like it had never been. Enough, an adult bellowed, louder than the splash, louder than the bells of the charms rolling on the stones. Enough of this. You children, go home. Hands waved, curses flew, and every glare landed on me. My sparks fizzed so hot I almost dropped my broom. Glow pressed up my throat, sharp and bitter. I wanted to shout until the stones cracked, "We're not the problem." The words rose to my tongue and hit something hard. They didn't see the thieves. They only saw us. Case file 10, adults equals wrong suspects. Evidence, everything. I squeezed the chalkstone in my fist until the edge bit my skin. I held my broom like it could keep me from floating right up out of my own anger. The square spun with smoke and spice and the clatter of trinkets and the faint, maddening thup-thup of shardcat paws vanishing where no one looked. I'm not done, I whispered, to nobody or to Lyric or to the stone under my shoes. Lyric's mouth barely moved. Maybe it was a smile. Maybe not. His glow flickered once, a sharp edge of light. It felt like he said, without saying anything at all, good. Don't be. Adults were already herding children by the shoulders, sweeping them like leaves, scolding and shushing and shaking heads. The wig bobbed away on the head of a shardcat like the last ridiculous banner of a parade we hadn't been invited to. I stood my ground a breath longer, broom still up, chalkstone biting my palm, sparks crawling under my skin with nowhere to go but forward. The shardcats stopped sneaking. They strutted, weaving through the crowd like they owned it, tails flicking smug, loot dangling like trophies. One had sausages bouncing against its side. Another carried ribbons in its teeth, colors trailing bright as banners. A third trotted off with a bread roll clamped sideways, crumbs spraying. And then, because shardcats are brats like that, the biggest one leapt onto a cart and yanked half a festival streamer loose. Red and gold snapped behind it across the cobbles, curling and twisting. And suddenly the whole raid looked like a parade. Case file 11, shardcats equals mockery specialists. They don't just steal. They gloat. This is it. I shouted, sparks bursting from my fingers. Don't let them turn it into a party. After them, my cousin screeched beside me. Kids lunged like an army with no training and no plan. Broom spears jabbed. Nets whirled. Sparks flashed in every direction. Buckets clanged. Shouting tangled into shrieking. For one dizzy breath the square became a battlefield, half play, half disaster, all noise. The shardcats leaned into it. They dashed between legs, tails slicing the air. One ran a full circle around the fountain just to be chased. Another scrambled up a cart, pawed at a basket of glow fruit, and kicked the glowing orbs loose. They rolled over the cobbles like marbles, scattering light across ankles and hems. Children slipped and scrambled after them as if they mattered more than the shardcats. The smells of the market, bread, spice, sweat, were drowned by new ones, juice squelched underfoot, smoke from a singed awning, tang of raw roots trampled into pulp. My shoes were slick with pear guts before I even realized. Adults were caught in the middle. But they weren't seeing what I saw. A shard cat zipped past with socks dangling from its jaws. The man it brushed against spun and jabbed his finger at me. "Your friends again. I told you, kids are the thieves." The socks were still moving, but he didn't look. A butcher waded in, waving his cleaver like a warning, and ended up dropping it in a sack of beans. The beans spilled everywhere, skittering like tiny stones. He cursed, not at the shard cat that had pawed the sack open, but at the two boys sliding on beans trying to block it. Clumsy brats. A mother pulled her daughter clear of a streamer shard cat's path, but toppled a stool into the lane. She scolded the girl the whole time. "Look where you're running. Always underfoot." A vendor leapt after his rolling coins, never noticing the shard cat batting them off the counter in the first place. When he got smacked in the head by a wild broom spear, he shouted, "Children again," not once glancing at the thief vanishing with his purse. Case File 12, Adults equals Witnesses Who Don't Witness. See fruit, beans, socks. Miss Shardcats with tails full of loot. I tried to rally what was left of my army. Cut them off at the fountain. I hollered, clambering onto a crate for height. Left flank, don't let them through. Lyric didn't laugh. He leaned against his broom like he had all the time in the world, but his glow sharpened, subtle as a knife edge. For a blink, his eyes tracked the streamer shard cat, not me, not the chaos, just the thief. He saw it. I knew he did. I did not think. I shouted. "Block the wheels. Block the wheels." Half a dozen younger kids jammed broom handles into the cart spokes like guards. It might have worked, except a woman bustled in, arms full of bread, shooing them away with sharp claps. "You're scaring the customers," she snapped, knocking the brooms loose. A shard cat slid under the wheel in the exact second she opened it. She didn't even notice. Case File 13, Adult Interference equals Catastrophic. Subnote, Adults allergic to obvious shard cats. The streamer shard cat vaulted onto another cart. The streamer whipped through the air, curling and tangling, snaring a lantern string. The lantern popped free, swayed wild, and smacked a man on the shoulder. He spun and accused the spice seller. The spice seller accused the baker. Their glows flared sharp as their words. "Not me. It was your brat. No, your stall." And while they argued, the streamer shard cat pranced down the lane with the streamer snapping triumph behind, making the whole disaster look choreographed. The crowd parted like a festival parade. Kids charged after it, sparks flaring, brooms raised. Adults swore and tripped and batted the air. "This is war." I shrieked and clambered onto a higher cart, balancing on crates that wobbled under me. I planted my broom like a banner and bellowed. "I'll save the town. I'll." The streamer snapped taut. The shard cat darted past. The cloth whipped around my waist, jerked my arms tight, and yanked me flat on my back. I hit the cart hard enough to see stars. My broom clattered away. The streamer coiled around me like a prize ribbon. Gasps. Then laughter. "She's the prize now," someone shouted. Adults surged in. Hands grabbed wrists, elbows, collars. They hauled us upright, scolding louder than we were screaming. "Enough. Wild children. Look at this wreckage." Not one of them mentioned the shard cats streaking away with sausages and ribbons and socks dangling like trophies. Not one. Case File 13, Adults equals Witnesses Who Don't Witness. Eyes open, brains shut. Through the tangle of arms and streamer, I spotted Lyric. He hadn't moved to help me when the streamer bowled me over, of course he hadn't. But his glow flickered sharp when the streamer shardcat vanished into shadow, like he was making his own note. His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. More like a smirk that said, I saw it too. The shardcats melted into the alleys. Their tails winked like broken glass in the lantern light. The wig bobbed once more, jaunty as ever, then vanished. I stood panting, streamer knotted around me like I was the captured one, not the hero. Sparks prickled sharp in my palms. My glow pressed hot against my throat. Case File 14, Market Disaster. Villains escaped. Adults blind. Evidence, me tied up like an idiot. I wanted to shout until the stones cracked. Instead, I swallowed the words, bitter as dirt. Next time. I'll prove it next time. I'll catch them. I will. The air stank of juice and smoke and trampled roots. My glow simmered stubborn as ever. I clung to it like a weapon. Even as the shardcats slipped smugly into the dark with everything they wanted. And just before the noise of the market faded, I saw it, far down the alley, a shardcat's tail shard flashing once, bright as a wink. Then gone. My spark slept hot in reply. This wasn't over. Not even close.